Welcome to Impact Investing, brought to you by the Supporters Fund, home to the first Tim Hortons, Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I'm your host, Jeffrey Potvin, JP. Let's please welcome from the food truck capital of the world, Miami, Florida, Sean Gold from OpenVC. Welcome, Sean. It's a real pleasure having you join us today.
Wow, thank you for having me. Food truck capital of the world. I would have said it's the cereal capital of the world because everyone here is a flake.
You've got the best lines, Sean. That's why I love everything you post. You're witty. You've got the right words. I love it. The actions are good. Did you enjoy the Tim Hortons portion that I shared where
I
I went
did. I did.
outside and I
Well, let's take it a step further for all those in Canada, especially in the Ontario area. We're coming on the weekend, and weekends belong to Club 7. That's right. If you're going to be in the Niagara region, make sure to check out Club 7. I give my friend who wants to open a nightclub with me a plug. He's got
love it.
plenty
I
of
love it.
spaces in Niagara, and it's where all of Ontario's sexy people party. Saturdays belong to 7. Maybe that'll take care of my ticket that he's going to get for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, maybe there's a little plug there. Everybody gets promotion dollars. Yeah, it's a good way to segment and way to start this off. But unfortunately, Tim's was not sponsoring us today. It just happened to be in my hand, and I thought, what a great way to segment this into the show. But regardless, Sean, it's a real pleasure having you here today. I'm excited because I love all the things that you post. You really keep the venture world on its toes. And I think you also keep entrepreneurs always second guessing what they're doing because I'm sure you found every single thing that makes a lot of sense and a lot of no sense in what they're doing. And you really call it out. So that's why I'm a big fan of everything that you post. And of course, all the conversations we've had, it always drums up around the startup community. So it's going to be a great discussion today. But the way we like to start our show is we want to get one thing about you that nobody would know. And let's go back to your University of Miami days, where you came from and all the great things that you've done since then.
Sure. All right. Well, one thing about me that nobody would know. Um, that's a tough one because I'm pretty transparent. Um, here's one. I'm taking one of my unproduced screenplays and I'm considering doing a Kickstarter for it. Not an equity crowdfunding campaign. So before everyone gets all excited, it's a simple Kickstarter. If I decide to do it, and yes, you get an actual finished graphic novel based on one of my screenplays. It's a science fiction. It's a set in Miami when Miami was affordable and traffic actually moved. Complete fantasy. So it's going to be little hard to digest, but it's true. So that's one thing nobody knows. But taking it back to the old school, literally, yes. So went to the University of Miami solely for my business. Okay, I got into far better universities, and I turned them all down because I wanted to throw parties and I wanted to hang out with celebrities and I wanted to go my own path, and that's why I chose the University of Miami. Everyone said I was crazy. And as usual, they were wrong and I was right. Best choice I ever made. Gave me not only a degree in entrepreneurship from the university, and I paid those parking tickets, so I do have my degree. Thank you. But secondly, working in hospitality and nightlife with celebrities, with high net worth individuals, with athletes, it teaches you a doctorate in psychology, in philosophy, in interpreting how people understand information and how they think. And it provided a strategic advantage and core competencies that apply to venture, that apply to startups. A lot of times, I don't want to say I'm hard on startups. It's just there's a dose of reality that I bring to the table because when we were doing nightlife, it was very simple. The place was packed or it was empty. There were no excuses. There were no, I need an investor. There was no, I need to get a strategic partnership. It's either you were able to do what your business is supposed to do or you weren't. It's that simple. No, there's no middle ground. So that kind of, gave me a competitive edge to what I do now. But it was so much more than that because nightlife opened a bazillion doors. I mean, because it built out a massive network of people from everything from entertainment to startups to Wall Street. I wrote my books because of it, so it opened the doors for publishing. I got into screenwriting. I got into lecturing, and I'm now up to almost a dozen universities. Real universities, not New Jersey Turnpike Community College, or as they call it, the Pike. Real ones like Georgetown MBA program and whatnot. So yeah, it all stemmed from being just 16, 17 years old and wanting to start something and not really taking any excuses. and not really listening to what other people had to say, and also not really kind of, you know, being focused on what most founders and entrepreneurs are today, and that's like getting investor money. It didn't even occur to me at the time that somebody would give me money. Whereas I feel like now it's like, oh, it's just easy. I'm a founder. I have a pulse. I'll just ask for $10 million pre-seed, no problem. And it just doesn't work that way. And I feel like no matter how many times I write about it, because I've written a ton of articles, which you can read on OpenVC.app, on how venture capital works, and you know, what do people do with venture capital all day, and how does a pre-seed round work, and how does a seed round work, what the metrics to have, and everything. Just people just still don't get it. It just, here's my deck, where's my meeting, where's my money. Like that's it. There's no thought is given to it, especially now in the age of AI. The AI generates the deck. The text is generated by ChatGPT. The founders are pretty lazy, where they don't even fill in the brackets. You know, if you want to use AI, fine, but where it says insert company name, insert the company name. Okay, that's for you. It's a prompt for you. So yeah, it's just the experience in Miami, or as I call it, Silicon Swamp. It really, you know, changed the trajectory of my life, and it was, you know, I did not anticipate going into venture. I did not anticipate working with startups. To me, it was just being an entrepreneur. To me, it was just hustling. To me, it was just making money, and it was just being self reliant. It was just, you know, it was also kind of embarrassing to ask somebody I don't know for money. And I feel like we should, startups should make shame great again. I think that's kind of what I do on LinkedIn. Make shame great again, because like you're reaching out to complete strangers to essentially ask them for money, and you're not even preparing for it, and you're not even testing it out, and you don't know if it's going to work yourself, other than the usual trust me it's going to work, whatever that means. And you could say trust me it's going to work if you have a track record and if you know what you're doing. That kind of helps. I mean, whenever I used to do these parties and events, and I worked with huge clients, you know, Absolute, Veuve Clicquot, Grand Marnier, iHeartRadio, the CW, all these things. Like whenever I talked to them and I made a statement, I could back that up because I had enough experience and I had a network and a Rolodex to know that it's going to work. And if it didn't, I would tell them straight up, I appreciate it, but it's not for me. It's not going to work. I don't want to do it, because I could gauge if I could deliver. It wasn't just something ethereal. It wasn't just a hope and a prayer. It was like, okay, I've been doing this for years. I know who's going to love this. I know who I can bring in, and I know how I can help you achieve your objectives. Because if not, it's kind of like we're all going to look bad. We're all going to lose money. And it's not so much a money thing. It's also a reputation thing. You want to have that reputation as someone that's remarkable, reliable, can be counted on, for whatever business you're doing. Even if you're doing a business, even if you're just an employee, you want to be known in the organization as this is the person that gets it done and doesn't make excuses, and we can count on because they're an executor.
Super valuable. And I'm going to peel back all of that and dive into a couple parts that you shared about. And what I love about how you started and where you've kind of directionally gone today is that you started as a hustle. You started as, I want to be X. I want to be somewhere, and I want to be this. And these are the people I'm going after. And you knew that at a young age. And maybe the nightlife was kind of that spot you were in at the time. And you thought, you know what? I can drive out great value in exchange. These people are going to give me money for this experience. And I'm going to learn how to get those people in this shop. And you mentioned it right away. You're either packed or you're empty. And packed is driving you money, empty is driving you nothing. So how do you promote and get those things moving? And I want to dive into the book side because, one, I think huge value, and amazing that you were able to take your learnings and put that into a book. I'm sure a lot of people would love to do that, just never understood how to do it. And you were able to do that not once, but twice. And you've got movie productions.
4 times.
And you've got a bunch of things you're doing. So it just keeps going and growing, which I think is phenomenal. And again, it's how do you change your mindset around what value do I have and what can I push out to everybody? So to go back to that unpacking of the nightlife side, you mentioned a couple of things around getting to work with celebrities and high net worth and everywhere from Merrill Lynch's, everywhere across, all of these people that have one thing in common. They're all looking for a great time and they've got money to spend. And because you go into this promoter side, what was one of the things that you started to learn that drew attention to your business that founders maybe need to look at when they're trying to drive attention to themselves or to their business? You obviously became really good at it, 20 plus years of driving out high volume into your organization and your business, what was those attractions? What were the things that you learned that high net worth individuals were looking for that you were able to resolve and get it to them in an impactful way that they kept coming back and wanting to spend money with you?
So here's the thing, and it applies to every business, is that in venture, as you know, we have the term called the unfair advantage. What's your unfair advantage? Why are you going to win over your competition? My unfair advantage was that, one, I was educated, both self educated and I was actually getting a degree, whereas everyone I was working with was just like a crackhead, right? Two, it's that people want a seamless experience. They want to have that trust. I always mention that I never ran a social media ad. Like, I don't even know how. I don't know how to go to like Facebook and set up an ad and what's going to happen. I just think it's a waste of money. My everything was built on referrals. So my mentality was that every single person that put their trust into me, the trust of their night, of their experience, that person is a client and we have to go above and beyond. And what happens is those people then tell their friends, or hey, you're going to Miami, you need a guy to go out. So it was really giving them that service. And most people, again, in nightlife, it was always, and this is before social media. Social media only made it worse and exacerbated it. But nightlife, everyone that works it gets into their head that they're like the rock star, right? That they have, I mean, and why not? Because you have beautiful women all the time around you. You have these celebrities, you have these high net worth individuals. They're all talking about how awesome you are. So it tends to like warp your mind. And the problem is that all those people are only talking about like being nice to you because they want to use you to get into that club. And when that club's not hot, they're going to go to somebody else. And that's what always happens. With me, I was always establishing the relationships where I was always trying to go the extra mile so that even if the club wasn't hot, even if it was an unknown place, they were going to take a chance because they knew I drove that value. It was very minor things that can apply to startups today because whenever I work with startups, I just see things that they're terrible with. We'll go down the list. Okay, being reliable. If I send an email or a text message, I don't need an instantaneous reply, but within 24 hours is kind of normal, right? I had to be on point. I was always near my phone. I was always on it because I didn't want to lose a client. I didn't want to, people can make different plans. They can flake out. They can cancel a trip. They can decide to stay in. So I had to be on point. So answering, right? And then I'm going to deliver a product or service. In the case of the nightclubs, it was, you will arrive at this time and I will get you in free and I will get you in with no wait or minimal wait. You have to understand that South Beach nightclubs back in the day were notorious for not having lines. They had crowds. And you'd have a selector and a doorman pick who would come in based on who they were, how they looked, whatnot. So I would always show up and I would get chosen and be like, who are you with? And I just walk them right in. And it was like a giant experience because you have all these people waiting out there and they're like, well, how are they walking in over me? What makes them so special? So like people just felt like they were celebrities, right? And then those are just normal people and college students. And what happens is that your crowd tends to grows with you. So the longer I did it, all the college kids and high school friends and, recently graduated people or people in their early 20s or late 20s, they grew up in their careers. So the referral started being, instead of my friend's coming for spring break and wants to party, is my boss is coming, my manager is coming, my director is coming, my CEO is coming. So it was just, the referrals because they knew they could trust me. They knew I wasn't a crackhead. They knew I'd get on a phone call. They knew I knew how to talk. I could carry myself. I could speak on their industry. I could do the research and understand. And I could deliver. That's the thing. You have to be able to execute and deliver whatever your product or service is. And a lot of people just can't deliver. So, by being, one, communicate, being able to communicate, text, calls, emails relatively fast, being honest and saying what you can and can't do and just delivering on that, on, as we call it, the value proposition. That's all it is. It's really that simple, but it's that hard because you have to actually do it, and a lot of people couldn't pull it off. And I had some situations that were reputation destroying, but that I used my wits and I lived within the moment to get it to make it right. And all the situations I ever had in that whole time doing it, I maybe had a few things that went wrong, but I made it right and I made amends. And there was maybe only one or two people that were just like, I'm never dealing with you again out of tens of thousands. So chalk it up to the law of large numbers. But I always made amends, even when the parties were terrible or something happened, or there was always something. And I mean, that's what you have to do. You are if you're doing a startup or just being an entrepreneur or just being in an organization, you have to drive value to your clients. You have to deliver it. You have to give people a reason to trust you and give you their business. It's despite what social media might show, it's extremely hard to convince people to spend thousands of dollars on VIP bottles and tables. Okay, especially in this economy. I can only imagine it now. Back when the stuff was booming, people were annoyed with it, and it's very hard. And I would have nights where we'll spend tens of thousands of dollars. I wasn't even like a sales like VIP guy. I was a person guy, but I built that network out where I was doing over six figures in sales every year. And again, this isn't sales of like a product; it's a sales of an experience. You get nothing from this money. You get the experience, which you probably are going to be too drunk to remember. So it's like, and it's something that we had to create this market for. And yes, like hip hop helped and pop culture helped because everybody wants to be in a VIP, but not everyone wants to pay for VIP. So it's about finding these people that can afford to drop $2,500 or $5,000 or $10,000 for essentially 3 hours, 4 hours. You get there at midnight, you're done by 3:30. Club closes at 5. So that's what the game was every weekend. Sometimes it was almost every night. It just depended on the year and the time and what we had.
No, it's a great way to break out and share kind of a few things that really stood out, obviously in your experience and how you guided people through this. And when you're delivering experience, I think that end-to-end white glove solution really does win people over, not for the night, but for a lifetime, because they remember how you took care of them. They remember how far you went when they had an issue where you had to clean something up. And to your point, you may have had one or two people drop off, but you always went in with the ability to correct everything. So if there was a problem, how do I make up for this? Let me get you in here tomorrow night. This guy's going to be here and it'll be a great connection. It'll be a great night, whatever that might be. You're able to find ways to help alleviate some of the pressure that may have been created. And to your point, a lot of times startups don't really understand how to correct things or don't go above and beyond to figure out how can I appeal to this customer, if it's an investor or if it's someone on their team or it's a customer buying their product. How do I make sure that everybody wins in this? And sometimes as the founder, you're going to take the loss because you want to win that reputation of getting things done, completing stuff. And, just to unpack the other one, I think to your point is that you mentioned there's really, I guess, 4 things: trust, execute, deliver, communicate. And I guess you can round it off with the last one, which is be honest and share what you can and you can't do. So taking those 5 points on how you learned over the duration of operating with high net worth individuals in a 4-hour period who were drinking, who were doing these other things that kind of change your mindset, there's a lot of value you're going to gain from being in a fast, dynamic pace on how to move your way through this ecosystem and how to get people to rely on you because they're going to this instance of gratification that you're solving, and they're leaving with a smile, they're leaving with a good impression that they're going to come back. So you've built that repetitive MRR over time, if you will, because those people found that they had a great experience with you. And then in the future, they probably came back for other things you did. They wanted to grab your first book. They wanted to support this because they believed in all the great things that you did for them at the time. And the last thing I would throw in there that really kind of set in my mindset when you were sharing this is that when you're working with people and you're finding them solutions, they're starting to trust you more because you're willing to do what it takes to win them over. But you're building a real friendship. So these people start to get behind you, part of your team, part of your community, part of your network, and you're finding ways to build in these tens of thousands of people over time that started to network into your ecosystem. So you really build a strength of community with people that have money and value, and you're learning what they're really looking for in an experience. What are they really going to, why did this person spend $10,000 tonight with me versus spending $100? How did I get them to see the value in us that they were willing to go that far and do it again multiple times over? You start to learn what investors are looking for. You threw yourself out there, you were communicative, you were promoting and vice versa on yourself or the business, and it drove a lot of value. So I guess in that experience, can you share today a bit more about what that type of interaction was with your clientele that you see used today in the venture world when you're working with high net worth individuals and investors? Are you still catering the same way to learning what their real problem is and what they're trying to solve and delivering that for them? And that kind of helps support your ecosystem you're building? Or is it more of it's just intrinsic? You already know what's happening. You've been doing it so often that you just maneuver so easily through the ecosystem that you're able to bind quickly to these individuals, help them solve their needs, and move on to the next one, raise the funds, and keep going.
Well, it's kind of both, but at the same time, like when I was getting into like venture and whatnot, whenever I was networking with venture capital, I mean, like with GPs and whatnot, I never asked them what they were investing in or asked to share my screen. My question always like, "What's the dumbest thing you heard this week?" Like what's the worst idea that you've seen? Like, and just laugh about it, and then kind of find out like, all right, well, what do you? How can I help you? Because obviously, if you have a specific fund thesis, or you're looking for specific things, or you're not looking for anything at all, then that's helpful for me to know because I don't want to bug people or annoy people. I want to help them. So I work with a ton of startups, and I know certain investors want certain startups. So if the startup is actually has some sort of promise, I have no problem making an introduction to investors. I have no problem sharing a deck because I know they might be interested. And if they're not, they all know how I preface it. My ugly face isn't in the deck. I'm not an advisor. I have nothing to do with it outside of helping them with a deck or advising them as like in a paid capacity for like this task. I'm not a long term. I don't have any equity. So like if it's horrible, just tell me. Like I don't care. Um, so yeah, and it's about what are you guys looking for? Like we're doing some stuff with secondaries right now. So it's like, hey, if you need some liquidity, we might be able to find some buyers. Or hey, if you want to get exposure to these late stage companies, we might be able to find you some sellers. So it's really just again the relationships with people, respecting boundaries, not annoying people, and being able to deliver and being honest. I mean, I see people, especially on LinkedIn, that they're deal makers. They help startups start up. I don't know what any of that means. It's just like, what is it you do? What is it that you do? Because like the venture market is right now, it's not so easy to make a deal, especially for pre-seed companies. So I don't know if you're like, charging them to boost their ego and give them meaningless value, as I see a lot of them are. But it's kind of like ethically, I wouldn't do that. I have a very like, this is what the deliverable is going to be on my end, and that's as far as I'm going to take it. Like, I don't promise that you're going to raise money. I don't promise that this is going to happen. What I promise is these three things, and I know I'm going to deliver on it, and you're going to have the value, and you're going to be better off for it. And if I can't deliver on it, I can't. I mean, listen, I've through the nightlife, I would turn down tons of money because we were sold out. Painful amounts of money, okay? Because there is no table to sell. I am not going to have somebody of that kind of caliber show up when there's no hope of them getting in and have them get mad at me and other people for, with the usual, do you know who I am? Do you know what I can do? I can buy this whole thing. I mean, like, it's not worth it. Okay, I'm just being honest, and people they appreciate the honesty. One story I always tell, I'll just tell it real quick because it applies to this, is that one of my largest clients I ever had was the result of me getting screamed at and insulted, like everything in the book, right? And instead of me responding back in that way, because I understood their position, I booked them a table, and someone else came in and tried to steal them to book them another table. Which again, I work on honesty, so I was like, "This is where the table's going to be." That's it. And of course, they told me, "Oh, we're going with another direction." I kept the reservation in there because when that happens, I know that just means someone is like, "I'm going to get you the best table in the house next to LeBron James." Like, trust me, it's not going to happen. So they get there and then they're pissed. They're pissed at the guy that promised it, and then he comes to get me, and then they're yelling at him, they're yelling at me, and this one guy just tears into me, telling all like, "I'm the worst person ever. I don't know what I'm doing. This never would have happened in Vegas." And I dropped someone's name in like Vegas. So I work with someone in Vegas. Trust me if you're not doing it right. And he's like, "Yeah, you don't know anybody. Who do you know?" And the name I dropped was his like best friend in Vegas. He was completely humbled. Completely humbled. He had to take a break and sit down. What happened was all the people who actually like were spending the money were like, they just, they were so impressed that I could take those kind of insults and remain professional and just remain cool headed that they became my biggest clients. And the guy that was screaming at me he came to the next event like 6 months later, and he gave me a hug. He's like, I was so out of line. I'm so sorry. I get it. Like, so again, you have to be professional. You have to, be honest. You have to tell them straight up, well, this is what it's going to be. Like, I don't know who told you. I mean, I knew who did. It was this little crackhead next to me. But like, I don't know who told you it was going to be here, because it's not. I never told you that. I said, I'd get you a table, and I did. I did not overpromise and promise the moon and deliver a crater. And that's what I see happening just with a lot of startups. I just feel like there's no honesty. There's just a lot of vultures that are going to be like, here, I'm going to do this and I'm going to show you. And nobody does any due diligence. No one does a simple Google search to find out if this person's real, if they have a track record. And I tell like people all the time, like, listen, I get it, you want to raise, but like, I don't shepherd raises. I'll make introductions for you, no problem. But I'm not going to take money that you can't afford to spend for the 15 to 20 months the round's going to last and like promise you something's going to happen. It just doesn't work that way. And anyone that tells you different, run for the hills, because unless you want to spend 10, 20, $30,000 where they justify, but once you raise 5 million, it's less than a percentage, blah, blah, blah. Like there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So, I just try to be ethical and honest in all my dealings, and entertaining, of course, but honest and ethical.
No, I love that, and I think you kind of have to be in a space that seems to be getting more cutthroat every day and more scams coming along. I think you do have to be direct, honest, and execute. To your point, everything is about execution.
Yeah.
You're not a business if you can't execute. If you don't have revenue, you're not a business. So really, at the end of the day, it's all about finding that balance. And you mentioned something, of course, quite a few times, and you've got a book that's based around this, but around the promoter side of things. So you said it's word of mouth, and execution delivers this word of mouth value. So can you share a little bit about the promoter side? Because I think this is quite a fascinating approach that we're all afraid of. I have to get myself out there. People have to know who I am. People have to see my face. And as you mentioned earlier, here's my pitch deck. AI built it. Here's this. AI built it. Where's my money? Where's my meeting? And then they don't show up to any conferences. They don't show up to any meetings. They don't go anywhere where there's networking or ways to connect with people. They're basically sitting at home or wherever they are. How do you get people to understand the power of promotion? And do you have to be an extrovert to be a promoter? Can you be a promoter and get out in the public as an introvert or as someone that's just not comfortable around people? How do you recommend, like, I've read so many things where they say, from every person out there that's a celebrity, they're all extroverted. They're all people that get out there, know how to hustle. They may not be comfortable with it, but they're good with people. They're good with connecting. How does the rest of the world, including these types of extroverted people, fight in this battle for FaceTime and getting in front of people when there's fears of rejection or whatever it might be? How did you overcome those? How did you get people to believe that you were the guy and that you were trustworthy and that they could take a card on you?
So P.T. Barnum has a famous quote that says, without promotion, something terrible happens. Nothing. Okay. You have to be out. When I was doing nightlife, it was like I was out all the time. Okay. While I might have only worked 3 nights a week, I was out. I mean, the only nights I took off, depending on the year, were like Mondays and Wednesdays, to be honest. I was always out. I was out at happy hours. I was out at house parties. I was out on campus. I was out at the bars. I had a presence so that everyone knew who I was, right? And I always had like VIP passes, which became my business cards. I had my business cards, and I was always taking numbers, and I was always doing it. So you have to be out. Now, do you have to be, like extroverted? No, because in this day and age, you can build a brand from your computer. Okay, you can go on LinkedIn and start creating content. I don't know. I ghostwrite for a lot of funds and executives, but like you post content. You can go to Slack channels, Discord channels, whatever the case may be, and just start DMing people. Take Zoom meetings, whatever you need to do. But you have to be real about it. I mean, when the pandemic happened, we're all on lockdown. That was like probably one of the greatest periods, as I wanted it to be, of networking and of learning, because it was a perfect opportunity and no distractions. So I was constantly on calls. I was constantly going to like events. I was constantly speaking. I was always there. I was in the chat of stuff. I supercharged my networking because you would have hundreds upon hundreds of people at an event in a Zoom. So, hey, here's my LinkedIn. This is what I do. You get like 50, 60, 70 connections, right? And then those people all want to talk. So you didn't have to leave the house or do anything. But if you're just going to sit there and hope somebody discovers you, like no one's ever going to discover you. It's the hardest thing ever just to sit there and like you get discovered. I found that all my greatest times of being discovered is because I was out there. I was talking to people. I was, stating what I was going to do. There was just so many times that I turned every experience into a networking opportunity. One of the greatest doors being opened, okay, is that after when I was 17, I first did my first parties in the Bahamas. Okay, where just I came back from the Bahamas and I had this dilemma because in the Bahamas I was the king. I discovered I had this superpower to pack these clubs and be a celebrity and everybody fawned over me. I come back to reality and reality Sean's not the king, right? Reality, I'm just, I don't have any of that experience. So I'm stuck with this dilemma of having this talent, of having this ability to market myself, of having this ability to influence others and get them to do what I'm selling, to get them to go where I want them to go. And I've always been a fan of working out. I was in the gym. I was talking to one of my friends who was older. He was a bouncer. As we're talking, this one guy says, "Hey, can you spot me?" I said, "Sure." Go back. I go back, start talking to him. Says, "Go, yeah, that's my dilemma. Just what I told you." And he goes, "Okay, see the guy you just spotted? That guy's like the main nightlife guy here. I'm gonna go introduce you so you can have a conversation." That's how it happened. That one little instance opened the door to all my Miami connections and started everything, right? So it wasn't like it wasn't like I went to a networking event. It was just I was talking to who I knew and I didn't know who they knew. But by stating my intent, what I was looking for, it just was like, here, meet this person. And that's kind of how it kept happening. I mean, doors kept opening because I kept going after what I wanted. In the book, The Hero's Journey, Joseph Campbell defines this as following your bliss, right? If you follow your bliss, then invisible hands come to help you. So I was going after what I wanted to do. And every time I've gone after what I wanted to do, it just seems that like doors open because someone knows someone, because I help somebody out unintentionally. I mean, I'm involved in Hollywood, right? I had a big break, not a major break, but I had a big door opened in Hollywood that got me dinner with one of the biggest movie stars on the planet and got me introductions to studios and all this stuff. How did I get that? Because when I was a sophomore in college, I did a favor for a professor that I didn't even have a class with, but his class recommended me as the person to help him with how to do an event. So I did it for him. I met with him. I said, "No problem, professor, whatever you need, just help them out." And over a decade later, he saw I posted something on Facebook about a screenplay, and he became a partner at the leading entertainment firm in Hollywood. Okay, so he opened the door, and I mean literally, he said, "You're on speakerphone. I'm opening the door," and he opened the door to one of his partners in the office, and I pitched. Right, that's how it happens. It happens because like you're constantly out there. You're being able to deliver. You're helping people out. I mean, there's a limit to the help. Again, if somebody that I know needs something, I will do it. If a complete stranger that I've never met wants 50,000 things done for free, I'm not going to do it. But the vast majority of the relationships I had that have been in person, that have been helpful, like I've always helped people out. Has it always led to something? No, but sometimes it does. And you have to be out there. You have to have a presence. And if that presence is video on social media, or if it's written content, or if it's going to startup events, or it's going to happy hours that are professional networking events, whatever the case may be, I can promise you that doing nothing will always lead to nothing, but doing something might lead to something. So you always want to be doing something. And it's not overnight, it is a constant process. And you get lucky. You meet enough people and you get lucky.
No, I think that's great. And what I love about your journey of discovery and figuring out how these pieces all work is that as you continue to focus and push your way through solving problems, helping people, but always, it sounds like, and I'm paraphrasing, but it sounds like you always had one problem that you were trying to solve. So in your mind, you're like, hey, friend, buddy, I have this problem I'm trying to solve. And then you ask, and then they would talk about it. Then you'd ask the next person, they talk about it. It's being vulnerable to a point, but it's opening up and saying, I got this problem, I can't figure it out. What do you think? And then everybody seemed to have some input, and it would drive you to the next thing. While on the other side, you're also giving away, you're asking for one problem to be solved, but you're also solving one problem. And that problem you solved was 10 years ago. And that favor came back 10 years later. Not that you were looking for it or that you requested it. And it reminds me of a story. I worked with a founder 15 years ago and sat down, had a coffee, and we chatted through some stuff. And then I got a phone call 15 years later. Hey, I'm building a company and I'm looking for investment. And you helped me 15 years ago. And I said, oh, that's amazing. Great. Well, awesome. And then you went into the details and shared, hey, I'm looking for this. This is what you helped me with. So I'm willing to help you get this. And at the time when we were talking, I couldn't remember who the person was. I didn't remember sitting down, but I had offered, and then they shared what I'd offered. And I was like, oh, now I remember the person. The idea was that I was just out there meeting and helping people move forward one step. And without, I could offer some ability to help that one step, which they took as helping them move that step forward. And then years later, they came back and said, hey, I want to help you. You're raising a fund. I'm going to connect you with this person. So what I found is that, you're not looking for a return in the investment of helping and support. You're offering your own abilities of understanding and with the space you're in. And if that can move someone else forward one step, awesome, then push away at it. Like you said, you're not going to do 50 of them, but if you can do one for that person and maybe it benefits their step forward, awesome. And then in the future, maybe something comes around the corner and they reach out and help you. So I think it's kind of a good give and take. You're offering a lot more. Even if you only get one back in 10 years, that one could be a big door opened, as you mentioned, which sounds like it was. And it was well worth the journey of offering all of that value.
Yeah, and I mean, it doesn't even have to be like a lot of offering of value. I mean, again, my next biggest break in Miami came when this was probably one of the biggest ones. I mean, and I didn't anticipate this. Was I was doing this party, and this was when Facebook first launched. So I was DMing everybody personally, copy and paste and doing it. And the party failed, okay? But one person got back to me and said, listen, this party's not going to work. Okay, he pulled a classic future me with startups. He said, it's not going to work. No one goes here. It's not good. And I was like, all right, thanks. I understand you're not coming. I was like, thanks for letting me know. I appreciate it. So this was in October or November. Then I get a call in like January and said, hey, this guy, told me to do parties and we're looking for somebody. I don't know who he was talking about. So what are you talking about? I don't know who it is because his name on Facebook was a nickname. So I only knew him by his nickname. So I go, who the hell is Dan? What are you talking about? And I go, Dan, like he gave the full name. He goes, oh, like I knew him by his nickname. So that one like message, that one DM that when he replied back, it's not going to work. He introduced me to his friend that was looking for someone. That introduction changed my life. Okay, because that introduction, these guys, I didn't realize at the time, were looking for me as much as I was looking for them. And I did one party with them, and you have to understand, I was coming from the mentality of throwing parties in the Bahamas, where the Bahamas, it's like we need 1,000 people, right? So I had like 50 people show up, and I felt like I was a loser. I was like, never going to do this. This is horrible. And I just I left. I didn't say anything, and then I just felt like depressed. What am I doing with my life? I get a call that's like, why'd you leave? Where'd you go? And I was like, oh, like I thought they were going to yell at me or something. And they're like, no, I'm like, I apologize. I was like, listen, it wasn't what I expected. He goes, Sean, you brought like 50 people. I go, I know. It's horrible. And he goes, you don't understand. He's like, everyone we've hired either has not shown up or has brought like 2 people or has brought a date. Okay. No one has come through. It's like, that's amazing. We want you to do stuff. And with them, it's like that opened everything. Because they gave me access to all the hot clubs. They knew that, like, okay, here's this guy that is bringing a ton of people, and they come early, and they're attractive, and they're fun, and they spend money, and it's like, this is a dream. So again, that literally opened the doors to South Beach, and that's how I got the big break in South Beach and doing all that stuff with all the brands and everything, was because I sent the DMs, and someone got back to me and said it wasn't going to work, and I was polite with it. So you never know what's going to happen. It's as long as if you feel that someone is cool, again, it takes me 10 seconds to make an introduction to somebody. I had someone I worked with that's doing something really cool for startups. They hired me to do an article content piece, no problem. They said they really want to work with me. They have to raise whatever, no problem. But they were just really cool. So I introduced them to a bunch of people and said, have fun. And they said, oh my God, I owe you so much. But I'm like, listen, it's cool. If something happens, fine. But I'm not like keeping a scorecard of like, this person definitely is going to owe me. Like it just, it's fine. Like if the person is professional, if they're cool, if they just have a good vibe, I have no problem helping them out because it takes 10 seconds. It's not a giant lift. And then they just take it from there. So yeah, it's you have to keep this kind of open mind when it comes to like just the networking, and you never know who you're going to meet, and one connection can change your life, and one connection can be part of like interlocking connections. And that's kind of what happened with South Beach. How it became like this presence was because I had all these people that recommended me to other people, because it was always every club and every brand and every lounge had the same need. Nobody wants to be empty. Even if you're half full, it's not the same. You want to go someplace that's jumping, where there's you want to you'll spend more money and you won't leave because it's good. If you walk into a place and it's empty, I don't want to go here. I'm going to go somewhere else, right? I want to go where the girls are. I want to go where the celebrities are. So everyone just, it was all referrals. People just kept calling me. I mean, I remember, I remember how I got my next big break. I'll take real quick. Was that this one guy I met at a house party that I started training with at the gym, who I didn't realize lived 5 minutes away from in my hometown from where my parents lived, and we would just hang out. He was not a club guy. He was not a promotion guy. He literally just liked working out and going to house parties. But his friend's sister was like the queen of South Beach at the time. Brought me out to one of her parties, introduced me. I didn't feel worthy to be there because I was 19. But yet, a year and a half later, I didn't even realize she remembered me. She called me direct and said, "Hey, I'm putting something together, and I need you, and it's great." And it was like, okay, I didn't even talk with her. I just shook her hand and said, "Thanks for having me. I love your parties. I'm a big fan." That was it. I didn't even have her number. She didn't have mine. So, yeah, it's really, you have to just be genuine, and you never know who knows who. And there's the phrase that everybody uses, and I hate the phrase where it's not what you know, it's who you know, because it's wrong. Okay, it's who knows you. Okay, who knows you? You're going to come to mind when people are talking about what they need. It's not it's not who you know. It's that if they know you. So it's been a big thing, and it's also those have been like the best relationships of just being like, okay, Sean's the person you got to talk to for this. And as soon as they make the introduction, and some people ask for the permission or whatever, I always get back. I always try and see how I can help. But that's how I've done everything my whole life. I've never spent money on the ads. I've never done sponsored this. I've never done any of that, just because to me it's better to do it. It's more tedious, but it's better to do it one by one for the relationship.
No, I think that's it's pretty exciting. And to paraphrase, it sounds like you really just say, take a chance. Every day is a chance. Take a chance.
Every day
Do
is a
something
chance.
different,
Every
and
day,
then see
it's
what the
one after
outcome
another.
is.
Everything is a chance. If 1,000 things don't work, but one does, and it's that giant one thing that works out and changes your life, it's worth it. I'm not haunted by the failures. I'm not haunted by the bad nights. I'm not haunted by the losses. I'd be more haunted by if I didn't make the attempt.
I love it. I love it. Before we switch into the 60-second rant, I did want to touch base on your promoter mind, the book, your book that you created, and there was a couple of things that really stood out, and I, we talked about a few of them, right? So, of course, networking, relationships, we've talked a lot about that, and then of course, actioning and getting things done, I think are pretty important, of course, and you just basically touched on you weren't looking at the failures, you were just figuring out how to keep moving forward. But there is one that I think kind of ties together, which is, confidence building, um, and getting confidence in yourself to do these things. And you just said this person invited you somewhere and you were like, oh my God, what am I doing here? I don't belong here. Yet you did belong there and they wanted you there. So maybe kind of fold up on the way your book kind of emphasizes this, but how do you gain confidence in a space that you're building something new in that you've never done before? And we just talked about take a chance. You're taking chances, but you're getting a lot of Heismans. You're getting a lot of punches down, and you're not really getting where you want to go. You don't feel you belong. How do you keep fighting forward? Like, where do you get the confidence from? Where do you find that nugget that you can hold on to, that 10% that keeps you in the business, keeps you running and motivated, versus saying, you know what, I've spent 6 months trying to I can't get any dollars. And you have a company that's making money and you're still not seeing that as a win. and you're beating yourself up, and then you decide to fold and walk away. What do you do as motivation? How do you get people to see that they've got something in themselves or in the business?
So personally, I think a super competitive advantage is to read. Okay. And I don't mean stupid business books with people's face on their cover. If they have their face on their cover, run for the hills. Okay. It's not going to tell you what you need, especially build confidence. I cannot understate the value of psychology books, of mythology books. There's a pedagogical function of mythology that we've forgotten as a society, and that's the ability to live under any circumstances, right? And as far as the confidence, I mean, it's the more stuff you do and the more failures you have and the more you put yourself out there, the easier it becomes. The easier it becomes. But if you've never done anything before, it's going to be impossible. It's going to feel impossible. So you have to keep moving forward. Um, I mean, again, I came from the thing where in the Bahamas, I just was like, I was just like, I'm going to do this. Like, hey, I can help you with these parties. And they loved it because in the Bahamas, you had a bunch of locals that the spring breakers don't want to talk to. You get a kid from, South Florida that knows New York and all this stuff, they're going to follow that kid. So it was like a perfect relationship. So, I had that confidence from that and seeing it was the ability. When I came to Miami, it was a whole different ball game, though. And it was very difficult because, you're like, who's this idiot? Who's this jerk? And I remember, I mean, I just, one of my favorite stories is that I used to get paid per VIP pass when I was 18. And every VIP pass came in was money. So I would always try to get hundreds of those bad boys in. So I would stand on the street in front of like the complex, like the outside mall where the club was at. And it'd be like this big area. They'd have the university have these shuttle buses drop students off, the drunk bus. And I'd give the passes out because I can get 20, 30, 40, 50 people going up there, every 45 minutes. Awesome. So this one girl looks at me, laps in my face, and drops the pass at my feet. Right? That's a blow to the confidence to have someone do that. Next year, I'm in the Bahamas, spring break. Right? I'm walking around, I'm promoting. Same group of girls is there. Same girl. They look at me and go, Sean, we're on spring break. What are you doing? Why are you working? Like, why are you here? And it's like, I throw parties here. I started here. And it's just like, yeah, whatever. Like, I don't know. I'm not a Gen Z now, but back then it was like, okay, as if. Stop trying to make it happen. Whatever. It was very. It wasn't a blow to the confidence, but I was just like, okay, like I don't get it. There must be something about me. Next semester rolls around. I'm a junior now. Remember the first time happened was a freshman, then a sophomore, junior. So now I've established myself. Now everyone knows to come to me. So I'm sitting in a bar, hanging out and promoting whatever. And she comes up to me and puts her arm around me. She's like, I remember when he started. I came to his very first parties. I knew he was going to make it. And I took her arm off me. I was like, no, you didn't. I was like, I remember. You didn't want to come to the parties. You threw the passes down. You didn't want to come in the Bahamas. So you get to that point. You literally get to the point of having this confidence, but you have to start somewhere, and you have to like not beat yourself up on it. And you're more cruel to yourself than the outside world is to you. And you don't really want to compare yourself to others, but you want to compare yourself to the billions of other people that aren't doing what you're doing. Okay, it takes guts to go your own way. It takes guts to have a backbone. If you see the path laid out before you, you're probably on somebody else's. Okay, so you really need to be able to be defeated. There's a quote from German poet Rainier Marie Rilke. Okay, I love this quote. It says, "The goal of life is to be defeated by greater and greater things." Okay, so you're not growing if you're not being defeated. You're not becoming the person you're supposed to be if you're not facing challenges, if you're not overcoming the obstacles, if you're not climbing the mountain whereas everyone else sees a wall. So you have to keep going. And that's where the confidence comes from. Nobody's naturally confident. I just, I've been doing stuff for so long that I'm not going to get nervous. I mean, I still get nervous for doing anything before, say, a lecture or speech, going on TV or whatever the case may be. But I'm able to do it. You get over it, and you know that if you're not able to do it, you're not going to forgive yourself, and you don't want to have that on your conscience. So you want to keep going, you want to keep moving, and it takes time. It's not overnight. They say it takes 15 years to be an overnight success, and they're wrong. It probably takes 20. It takes much longer. So you have to face the blows of your peers, of investors, of the market, of fortune, of fate, of all that stuff, and you have to keep going.
No, it's well shared, and I think from your quote, it's success is doing. So I think you really just summarized that you really have to just get out there, push yourself. Um, you have the guts to build it. Stick behind yourself. As much as it might be a little bit or a lot of confidence, and then utilize the little wins that you can find and use those to keep pushing you forward. But just know that when you're in the path that you think you're doing the right thing and you're doing it in an honest and a way that you feel you can support, just keep pushing it, and eventually you'll start to gain those little wins, and you'll turn other people's minds around too, as you did with the female friend. She eventually came around to believing that you were great at what you were doing, and you know what?
Yeah, she was clout chasing. Come on.
But at the time,
she's like, oh, now that he's made it, it's kind of like everybody. I mean, that's what everyone says. It's kind of like everybody wants to be part of the success when you're the success.
Well, look at
that's what it is. And if
you look at Elon Musk,
it's like
the same, right? He was, no one cared for what he had to say until they beat him up, kept doing it, and then when he became famous, then everybody supported him. So everybody hated him until he became the number one top moneymaker in the world. And then once he got to the top, it was only there for him to screw up. And then eventually he was able to screw that up because he said the wrong things, went against the grain of everything. And not because it was how he was that got him there. It was just he was saying the things that were pushing against the grain. So, there is, of course, people want to fight against you becoming successful. There are going to be the odd supporter. If 99% of people are against you, the 1% are the ones you want to find that support you. But the thing is, you believed in yourself. So because you believed in what you were doing, eventually you were going to make traction. Eventually, in year 2 or 3, people were going to start to see you and promote. You were promoting yourself well. So in time, it starts to come around full circle. But you got to put the legwork in. You got to put the time in. You got to do all those things, because it's not going to come, as you said, sitting in your room doing nothing. It's all the spots you got out to. It's all the house parties you went to. It's everywhere you went. And that's what obviously helped you build up a lot of value. Write a book, 4 books, write screenplays, movies. All of these things came because of the network you built, which is you put the time in, you put the effort in, you made sure you were there and you're recognizable. And that's what gets people going. Like outside of Bansky and a few other people, there's not many people out there that are able to build a value that the whole world is dying Bitcoin. They don't know who the person is, but the value they've offered back to the world supersedes who that person is. And because it supersedes it, they've left the unknown, which is who is this person? And everybody's still trying to figure it out. Take Bitcoin as an example. Satoshi, they're actually now pulling FBI records to figure out who is this person, because it's grown so big and so much value there that now they want to know who the founder is, whereas before it wasn't as important as it is today. And the same thing with Bansky. They still try to solve the mystery. So, there's a very few and rare opportunities where someone's brand can become bigger than the image themselves. But they had to go through the kicks and the punches. And it sounds like, as you said, it was, you have to have the guts to do it, but stick to your vision and your drive, and you're going to get there, and you'll find the right people with the right amount of information you can share out. So
100%.
So we're going to switch over now to the 60-second rant. So you've got
only 60 seconds and only one.
One rant, 60 seconds. I'm going to put it on a timer. You start when you're ready to go, and I'll rebuttal as best as I can. You ready? You're on.
Okay, we're gonna, seeing as I work with founders, we're gonna talk about the core incompetencies. That's what this rant is called. Core incompetencies. Are you ready for me?
You're on. Hit it.
All right. Founders, your team slide is used to list your core competencies as it relates to your startup, not your dating profile. The following are not core competencies that make you investable under any circumstances. Ready? Here we go. Loves to travel or travel to X countries. Is family oriented. Is a mother or father to children or pets. Loves outdoor activities. Is a fan of X sports teams. Is a strong supporter of X political policies. Has a high school, college, or GPA that isn't relevant because they've been out of college or high school for decades. Is a technology enthusiast. Is an industry advocate. Is a volunteer for X. Is a startup evangelist for X. Is a trendsetter for X. And has an award winning for X that has nothing to do with the business they're building. Done. There you go. Is that in 60 seconds?
Actually, that was, if you timed it all together, it'll be over 60 seconds. But if you put it with just where you started the rant, you're under 60 seconds. So well done, my friend. Well done.
Rebuttal.
So I'm going to to unpack this, and I'm going to share that. To your point, a pitch deck is a purview of where you want to go with your business. How does this thing make money? And if you do it right, it's all about 90% of it is how do you make money in this business? So your job is to get people interested in you and your business in this very first pitch deck. Perhaps in the larger 2-hour, 3-hour deep dive, some of these other facts that you just brought up may come out because they might be of use to build trust with the investor into you, into your business. And again, they have to pertain to the business model. To your point, a lot of the things you said had nothing to do with the business or building trust. So I would rebuttal by saying, how, as a founder, do I relate to investors so that they can tell that I'm human and that I'm trustworthy in my 60-second pitch deck or whatever it is that can be relatable and valuable to get you to the next steps?
Do I get a rebuttal to rebuttal?
Yes, you can rebuttal it.
Okay, I mean, show your core competencies. That's it. If you're building in fintech, then your love for butterflies is not going to be a core competency. Your experience at JP Morgan Lynch probably will. Your experience working for this startup, building out their systems and processes, or with this service provider probably will. You just want to be able to showcase that there's a right fit, that the team can relate to the business and can deliver on the executable goals. So, again, just because you love hamburgers and you're building an AI for hamburgers, I don't think it's a core competency. Okay, it might help if you were in the hamburger business and you understand that maybe there are processes that AI can soothe. But if you just love eating hamburgers and you want to get rich quick because AI is trending, it's not going to happen, and it shouldn't be in there.
I love it. Well shared. No, it's very valuable, and I agree. I think you have to really trim down what you're offering and just put the bites that support the business because you're trying to attract them. You're not looking for friends or dates, as you mentioned. So really well shared. Great rant. I love it.
Oh, thank you.
All right, we're going to move into our business section, which is you pick one or the other as an investor, as a supporter, as a way of helping founders move them along in the network ecosystem. You pick which one you're more interested in, one, A or B.
Okay, right, smash or pass. Got it. Let's do it.
Exactly. Founder or co-founder?
Founder.
Unicorn or a 4-year 10x exit?
4-year.
CPG or tech?
Tech.
AI or blockchain?
AI.
First money in or Series A?
Ooh, it's a tough one. Is there another one in between? If I had to choose, if I had to choose between those two, it's a trick question. That's a horns of dilemma. Either one, you choose because it's hard.
All right, fair. Board seat or observer?
Board seat.
Safe or convertible note?
Safe.
Lead or follow?
Follow.
Favorite part of investing?
Oh, that's a tough one. There's no A or B to choose from. Let's just the money. Simple.
Fair. Verticals of focus?
Oh, there's no more A and B. Now it's just my it's just me talking. Okay. Okay. I was confused. I was waiting for all of the above. Okay. So I'm a partner at Improve Ventures. You know my partner, one of them, Olga Duca. So we focus on our fund in emerging markets. We're sector agnostic, but we like things that are scalable. For those not in the know, emerging markets are Sub-Saharan Africa, Latin America, and Southeast Asia. I'm sorry, but Etobicoke is not an emerging startup market for those in Toronto. As much as you want to claim it is, it's not, and neither is Scarborough. Sorry, love the Bluffs, not an emerging market. And then also, like I said, I'm involved with secondaries and late stage deals. So usually these are Series B companies and above. Those are, and right, they've been this year focused mostly in AI.
Number of companies invested per year?
Just going off secondary deals, it's been 2 so far this year with a pending third one.
2 qualities for a startup to stand out to you?
Competence and exciting idea.
Okay, we're a couple of quick questions here. What is a piece of advice you'd give 9 out of 10 times to founders?
Only raise when you're ready, and don't start a company just to raise.
Fair. Who is your hero, mentor, and why?
I don't have one. I have multiple mentors, multiple heroes. I don't have one off the top of my head.
If you could change one thing about venture, what would it be?
Only one? um, I wish it was more approachable from both the founder side and the funder side. I would remove the hierarchy of BS. I would remove the. I just did a post about on LinkedIn on this today, but I would remove the need for a translator. Right? I would wish it would just be honest and upfront. That's it. It's too much garbage. It's the whole point of this is to find exciting companies that have a chance of succeeding and invest in them. That's the whole point. And it's become a clout driven, braggadocious, everyone's a thought leader, whatever that means, trying to be an expert in something they're not. This is, for example, this is the worst venture market I've seen in all my years of doing this. Chad, intern at Sequoia since 2023. Like, I mean, it's like, come on, it's just like I wish it was more simple. That's what I think. It was just, hey, you invest in this and I'm doing this. Take a look and let's do it. Okay, no bullshit, no fill out the form, no hour, fill out all these things. Be like, here's a few questions, and if you don't qualify, don't submit. Do you have revenue? If so, how much? What stage are you at? Have you raised before? What are you looking for? Boom. That's it. Let's get going.
I love it. It's Chad. Always Chad.
It's always Chad or Cody or Bryce. It's always someone giving, such venture insights. AI is going to be the most transformative technology we've seen in decades. Bryce, AI enthusiast since graduating Emory 2024.
All right, we're going to move the personal side. Here we go. Favorite movie and what character would you play?
Again, can't answer. There's way too many.
Pick one. I got to know what your favorite movie is. I want to know one movie and a character. Come on.
Mad Max Fury Road, and I'll play Mad Max. Very simple.
I like it.
Or it could be like Red Dawn, and I'll play Patrick Swayze's character. It's just like there's so many to choose from.
But that's a great insight. I love that. All right, favorite book.
Again, very hard. I cannot answer those because there is not one single one. I can give you a book that I enjoy, but it's just one of my favorites.
What book did you enjoy recently that you think is worth sharing to the audience?
All right, so recently I've been reading novels. A key competitive advantage is to not read constant business books. It's just regurgitated stupid stuff. So I've been reading novels. Ask the Dusk, John Fonte, a book that no one's ever heard of, but it's great. Real literary enthusiasts know it. John Fonte's Ask the Dusk. I just finished Fire and Blood because I was annoyed with House of the Dragon. It kept leading me on. I said, I'm not going to wait to find out what happens. So I read that. Quite enjoyable. So if you're tired of the show, because that's what it is, House of the Dragging, then just read the book. It's 250 pages. It's Fire and Blood. You'll enjoy it. It'll close all the gaps, and you don't have to wait 2 years to have the show ruined for you again, like I did. And then I guess a business book, not recent, but a business book that I've always enjoyed is Lucky or Smart by Bo Peabody.
I love it. All right, these are rapid fire again, real quick. Cake or fortune cookie?
Cake.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
DC or Marvel?
Marvel.
Football or football?
Football with the kicks.
Love it. Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey?
Oprah.
What is your superpower?
My photographic memory and my ability to network. I'd say those are like the two biggest ones.
Sean, I would agree with you. I'd say that outside of those, you're also a great communicator, and I love your satirical approach to life and the space that you work in.
So thank you. Ladies and gentlemen!
Think it's amazing, and I love the color you bring. So I want to say thank you very much for joining us today and sharing with us. It's been a great conversation, lots of great notes. And the way we love to end our podcast is we like to give you the last word. So anything you can share back to investors, to founders, I turn it over to you, and please let people know how they can get a hold of you. But thank you again, Sean, for all your time.
Well, thank you for having me. Is there going to be a link at the bottom that I can do the influencer thing and be like, click the link below? LinkedIn is always the best way because one, you can connect, and two, you can see my daily insights Monday through Friday. My misery is your comedy. You'll be entertained and you'll learn. So yeah, LinkedIn, and then I guess the last word is okay. I'm Sean Gold, and for as long as you're an entrepreneur and investor, keep learning how to be an entrepreneur and investor.
I love it. Well shared. Learning never stops.
Never does.
Keep reading. Perfect. Great conversation with Sean. I guess a couple of great things that we'll share that he brought up in our conversation, and I highly recommend connecting with him on LinkedIn. He shares a lot of great content that is really pushes you to think, especially when it comes to the venture space. So always look for what the unfair advantage is, and then diving into those. Trust, execute, deliver, communicate, and be honest. I think those are really huge. Take a chance, see what happens. Success is doing. So again, big fan of how he articulated all of those. P.T. Barnum, without promotion, what's the worst that can happen is nothing. So learn to promote yourself, learn to promote your business. As hard as it might be, it's the outcome is always going to find value, and stick to your drive, stick to your goals, and keep pushing forward, and you'll keep growing. Thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed this conversation, please feel free to share with your friends, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or please follow us on Spotify, Amazon, or Apple. You can find us on social platforms, including LinkedIn at Supporters Fund. Your support and comments are truly appreciated. Please visit us at supportersfund.com or start up events at openpeoplenetwork.com. Thank you and have a fantastic day.